So, up to this point, we've seen the first and second commandments broken in Exodus, the second book of the Bible. We've seen the third commandment violated in Leviticus, which is the third book of the Bible. We've seen the fourth commandment broken in Numbers, the fourth book, and we've seen a fifth commandment violation presented as case law in Deuteronomy, the fifth book of the Bible. But there's an issue that we're going to have to deal with at this point in our journey. The order of the first 5 commandments has never been disputed. Have no other gods before me. Make no graven images. Don't take God's name in vain. Keep the Sabbath holy and honor your father and your mother. These are the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth commandments. There's no argument here. There's total consistency in their ordering. But when it comes to the commandments that deal with murder, theft, and adultery, there are issues. In the Hebrew text of Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5, the 2 places where the 10 commandments are formally listed, the 6th, 7th, and 8th commandments are murder, adultery, theft. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, when they deal with the 10 commandments, we find this exact same ordering: murder, adultery, theft. So, done, right? Sorted. What's the issue? Not so fast. In the Greek version of the Old Testament, called the Septuagint, a version of the Bible that was very popular with Jews and Christians in the 1st century BC, 1st century AD, the order's different. In the Septuagint, it's adultery, theft, murder. Well, that must just be like an outlier, right? The Greeks must have just gotten their ordering wrong. Not really. In 1902, historians discovered a piece of papyrus that's now called the Nash Papyrus, named after the guy who purchased it from a dealer of antiquities. It is dated to the late 2nd century BC, which makes it incredibly old as texts go. It's not a copy of the Bible per se, but it appears to be a liturgical text that might have been used in corporate worship. It has the Shema prayer, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one," and the 10 commandments. Commandments 1 through 5 are in the normal order, but commandments 6 through 8 are adultery, murder, theft. But that must have been just a simple error, right? You might remember Philo of Alexandria from our course on the prologue to John. He was an incredibly important philosopher that married Judaism and Greek philosophy. He was instrumental in the development of Jewish logos theology, which would eventually enable the author of the Gospel of John to say that the logos of God, the Word of God, is Jesus. Philo wrote an entire book on the 10 commandments. And when he dealt with the 6th, 7th, and 8th commandments, he used the exact same ordering as the Nash Papyrus: adultery, murder, theft. Now, the Nash Papyrus and Philo are both from Egypt. So maybe that particular aberrant ordering was just an Egyptian thing. But then we turn to the New Testament. In the Gospel of Luke, when Jesus is speaking to the fellow we normally know as the rich young ruler, Jesus says to him, "You know the commandments. Do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal." Oh my, Jesus orders the commandments: adultery, murder, theft. And then we find the exact same order in the 13th chapter of Paul's letter to the Romans, and the 2nd chapter of the Epistle of James. In the Old Testament book of the prophet Hosea, the commandments are listed in a totally different order: murder, theft, adultery. And in the book of the prophet Jeremiah, they are in yet another order: theft, murder, adultery. Now, at the end of the day, does it really matter which commandment is 6, which commandment is 7, and which commandment is 8? I mean, isn't it enough to just say when it comes to murder, stealing, and adultery, just don't do those things? But we have to go back to our journey, to this pattern of commandment violations, which come book by book. What commandment is violated in the 6th book of the Bible? Theft. What commandment is violated in the 7th book of the Bible? Murder. And what commandment is violated in the 8th book of the Bible? Adultery. So in this pattern of commandment violations that we're studying, the commandments are ordered theft, murder, adultery. Do you notice who else orders the commandments this way? Yeah, it's our old friend Jeremiah and his personal scribe who wrote it all down for him, Baruch. As David Noel Friedman says in his book, The 9 Commandments, it is of no small consequence that the commandments violated in the books of Joshua, Judges, and Samuel adhere to the order in which they are listed in the book of Jeremiah. We started this course out by noting that Jeremiah's scribe, Baruch, was probably the editor who highlighted the pattern of commandment violations, where each commandment is broken in order in book after book until Judah and its capital city of Jerusalem are destroyed by Babylon. This little detail, the ordering of the 6th, 7th, and 8th commandments in this intricate pattern of commandment violations, is one of the details which really seals the deal that Baruch was responsible for this pattern being in the Bible. Writing in the years immediately after the crushing destruction of Jerusalem, Baruch was called upon by God to tell the story of how the people got in that situation. And when he tells the long story, he orders the 6th, 7th, and 8th commandments in the order that he and Jeremiah were accustomed to. The obvious question to think about at this juncture is, what do you make of this fascinating development? How does this affect or change your understanding of how the Bible was put together?